The cash crunch. Have you found yourself wondering which countries might be facing financial turmoil in 2025? Yeah, well, so have we. Luckily, we have the inside scoop on the 10 nations that could be teetering on the edge of bankruptcy, from economies imploding to governments watching their own schemes backfire. These countries are collapsing faster than a balloon running out of air. So buckle up and let's get right into it. Number 10, Venezuela. Let's kick things off with Venezuela, a country that is the perfect example of how not to run an oil-rich nation known for its vast oil reserves, boasting the largest in the world with more than 300 billion barrels in reserve. By the early 2000s, Venezuela appeared poised for prosperity. However, a combination of poorly managed economic policies, overdependence on oil revenues, and political instability has transformed this potential wealth into significant hardships. In recent years, the collapse of global oil prices, compounded by corruption and rampant inflation, has sent the economy plummeting. According to Treasury officials, oil does remain a major source of income for Venezuela, but has been a mechanism for fraud and corruption. It's safe to say that this has caused a damaging ripple effect, but the country has long been struggling anyway, and President Nicolas Maduro has been causing chaos and upset since 2013. I mean, just look at that 2018 video of him chowing down on fancy food at Salt Bay's restaurant. While a large portion of his country worry where their next meal is coming from, talk about rubbing salt in the wound, no pun intended. Speaking of, according to World Division, by December 2023, 7.6 million people residing in Venezuela required humanitarian assistance, with many struggling with dire shortages of food, medicine, and other necessities. 82% of the country's people live in poverty. And while inflation is cooling down, the price rise is still 25% more than it was in 2023. What's more, according to Council on Foreign Relations, the oil price plunged from more than $100 per barrel in 2014 to under $30 per barrel in early 2016, sent Venezuela into an economic and political spiral. And despite rising prices since then, conditions remain bleak. We know what you're thinking. Can this Maduro guy do anything right? Not according to CNBC TV8, who noted that Venezuela's debt currently stands at $154 billion. Number 9, Greece. Greece, often hailed as the cradle of Western civilization, struts its stuff with its rich cultural heritage, stunning landscapes, and beautiful islands that attract millions of tourists annually. Greece is by no means considered to be a poor country, and its economy is advanced and industrialized, yet somewhat small compared to other countries. But it may come as a shock to many that despite its historical significance and natural beauty, Greece has been grappling with profound financial troubles since the 2008 financial crisis. It has also become known for its weak banking sector and plummeting wages, which as of 2024 are the third lowest wages in the EU, characterized by low labor competitiveness, a low tech presence, in subpar unions, according to Wage Indicator. The current minimum wage in Greece is $830 per month in 2024. If you compare that with the estimated monthly costs of $846 per single person, excluding rent. It's fair to say that many people in Greece are struggling financially, according to Statista. Greece's continuous rise in debt has overwhelmed its estimated GDP over the years, which can be attributed to poor government execution and unnecessary spending. In terms of poor government spending, they were likely referring to the country's issues with tax collection. Tax evasion is a particular problem for Greece, which significantly lags other EU countries in tax collection efforts. The result is tax rates that are too high and are applied to too few. It's almost like trying to share a slice of bee lava among 50 people. Everyone wants a piece, but there's just not enough to go around. In 2009, the country saw its budget deficit rocket to more than 15% of GDP. And that pesky overspending Statista mentioned, well, according to Greek City Times in 2021, Greece led the European Union in pension spending, with expenditures amounting to 16.4% of its gross domestic product, the highest ratio among EU countries across the EU. A total of 1,882 billion EUR were spent on pensions in 2021, representing 12.9% of the EU's total GDP. Number 8, North Korea. The complicated history of North Korea, formerly known as the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, or DPRK, begins with its separation from South Korea following World War II, which resulted in decades of isolation in totalitarian governance. Since Kim Jong-un is promoting the illusion that North Korea is the ultimate utopia for its citizens, where everything from nuclear breakthroughs to extravagant parades are hailed as proof of prosperity. The leader of this, let's say, unique country certainly has a flair for the dramatic. It certainly seems like the regime likes to march to the beat of its own drum, but too bad that drum is running out of cash with sanctions biting harder than a hungry dog at dinner time. The nation's economy is teetering on the brink of bankruptcy. Agricultural woes and mismanagement have left the country in a food crisis, causing more people to scramble for crumbs than join a synchronized parade. And what's ironic is Kim Jong-un has pretty much caused the issue himself by closing North Korea's border in January 2020, which stopped the import of grain fertilizers and machinery from China, despite the fact that North Korea has a short cropping season. So does this guy just want to be hated by his people, or is he just delusional to get a broader look? The next thing to explore is North Korea's value of goods and services, or GDP to put it bluntly. It's not good and is actually among the lowest in the world in 2023. North Korea's GDP per capita was 1,207 ton in nominal terms and $1,500 in purchasing power parity terms. This ranks North Korea 178th in the world for nominal GDP per capita and 180th for PPP GDP per capita. But how are the citizens of North Korea coping? Well, for most of them, not very well. It's estimated that in 2020, 60% of the North Korean population were living below the poverty line. Beyond this, the regime is known to tightly regulate access to external data sources and often provides only state-sanctioned figures that promote a particular narrative, which can be misleading or inaccurate, which is why it's widely known that reliable information on the performance of the North Korean economy usually has been lacking. So overall, it's fair to say that North Korea is struggling financially, and it's not looking like things will improve anytime soon. Number 7, Argentina. Argentina, a sprawling land of tango, vibrant culture, and mouth-watering steaks that could make even the most dedicated vegan question their life choices, but also a country where inflation skyrockets faster than a cat on a hot tin roof. If only the pesos would leap as high as those cats, maybe they'd be worth something again. From the stunning landscape apes of Patagonia to the bustling streets of Buenos Aires, Argentina has the ability to charm visitors with its warm-hearted people and plush traditions. It has a dynamic arts scene, a passion for football that feels like a whole other religion, and some of the friendliest locals you could wish to come across in your life. Yet beneath this colorful exterior lies a much graver reality. Since the dawn of the 21st century, this captivating country has tragically defaulted on its sovereign debt not once, not twice, but 3 times. And sadly, these defaults have thrown Argentina into a whirlwind of economic instability. In October 2024, CNBC TV8 included Argentina in their list of 7 countries that are either bankrupt or need bailouts to avert a default. They noted that the country owes over $400 billion to creditors and has had several debt restructurings in the past, with the most recent being in 2023. They went on to say that poverty rates have risen to 52.9%, even though the economy has only just begun to expand. Additionally, they added that Oxford economics projects a 75% likelihood of a default in 2025 and 2027 due to the hazy economic future. So how do people live here in September 2024? BBC News reported that more than half of Argentina's 46 million people are now living in poverty. They also reported that Argentina's annual inflation rate in August 2024 remained one of the highest in the world at more than 30%. This rampant inflation erodes purchasing power, pushing people into poverty as essentials become increasingly unaffordable with wages. Failing to keep pace and economic instability prevailing, many families find themselves struggling just to make ends meet in a harsh financial landscape. Number 6, El Salvador. A charming nugget of Central America known for its stunning beaches, vibrant culture, and a place where everyone seems to know how to play the marimba. You know, that hefty thing that looks like a xylophone's hipster cousin. This little country has a colorful history from ancient Mayan civilizations through the spirited fight for peace in the 20th century with its enthralling landscapes and varied cuisine. El Salvador certainly has the innate ability to charm and fascinate. Yet here's the kicker, folks. The country finds itself grappling with some major financial challenges by 2023. The economy faced a bit of a bump in the road, as sluggish growth in neighboring countries put a damper on exports coupled with rising inflation and tighter monetary policies when weighing up El Salvador's Strengths and weaknesses Co-Face found significantly more of the latter, and the majority of them were finance-related. These included inadequate public infrastructure dependence on the U.S. for investment trade, tourism, and expatriate remittance lack of independent monetary policy due to the USD being the primary official currency, limited access to multilateral financing, and significant inequality and poverty. They also noted how the introduction of Bitcoin as second legal tender in 2021 has shaken the market and investor confidence in terms of the country's debt. It is rather worrying to say the least. According to World Economics, the economy of El Salvador is officially reported as having a debt-to-GDP ratio of 81.3%, indicating El Salvador's debt level is $24 billion. So how has this lent itself to the living conditions of El Salvador citizens? Well, when a country has high debt, a substantial portion of the government's budget must be allocated to servicing that debt, paying interest and repaying principal, which can limit spending on essential services like health or education and infrastructure, as reported by Trading Economics in 2022. 26.6% of the population in El Salvador live below the national poverty line, which is higher than the Latin America and the Caribbean LAC average of 24.1%. As of 2024, Maciar trends state that 27.5% of El Salvador citizens earn less than $55.50 per day. To compare the stark difference, the average hourly income in the United States was $344 as of October 2024, which would work to $248.22 per day for your average 9-to-5 job. Number 5, Belgium. A delightful patchwork of charming cobblestone streets, scrumptious chocolates, and that irresistible lure of waffles that can make anyone's heart skip a beat. We guess this is why people tend to visit here around the holidays. Cough, cough, holiday wait located in the center of Europe. Belgium has a landscape as diverse as its well-known friets, ranging from the bustling port of Antwerp to the rolling hills of the Ardennes. This quaint but mighty nation is a cultural dynamo celebrated for its art history, and of course, the fine art of brewing. Delectable beer cheers. However, even this adorable country isn't immune to the twists and turns of economic life. By 2023, Belgium's debt ballooned to a staggering 15.2% of GDP due to high government spending in response to the recent pandemic, persistent budget deficits, and rising interest rates. This made the country's debt-to-GDP ratio more than twice the median of AA category sovereigns, at 48.2% of GDP, according to a press release from the Belgium Debt Agency. By the end of October 2024, the federal government debt amounted to $5,886.37 billion a year, an increase of $8.22 billion a year since September. According to StatBell, 18.6% of the population are at risk of poverty or social exclusion. What exactly is going wrong here? To try and answer this, let's first jump back to 2015 when Belgian politician Tom van Green referred to his own country as a failed state. At that time, it caused quite the uproar as many people wholeheartedly disagreed with it, including the Brussels Times. However, jump back to 2024 and some people are starting to see his vision. The number of unemployed people receiving benefits in Belgium has surged to 6.7% by February of 2024. Belgium's annual inflation rate was 3.61%, which is higher than the European inflation rate of 2.6%, and the annual inflation rate for house prices amounted to 3.4% in the second quarter of 2024, which was an increase compared to the rate of 3.2% observed the previous quarter. Number 4, Myanmar. Myanmar, a country represented by stunning golden pagodas, refreshing landscapes, and a wide range of cultures situated between India, China, and Thailand. This Southeast Asian gem is home to stunning attractions from the serene waters of Inle Lake to the majestic peaks of the Himalayas. Here it is near impossible to resist being immersed into the busy and colorful streets where delectable bowls of minga and crispy samosas wait to tempt your taste buds. However, amidst this allure, Myanmar faces significant financial struggles, with entrenched poverty becoming a major concern in recent years. According to World Bank, by early 2024, the poverty rate Myanmar topped 32%, rising to levels last seen in 2015. To that, an additional third of the population became classified as economically insecure. This is rather perplexing, as Myanmar was once seen as a thriving and emerging economy, leaving many to wonder what went wrong in June 2024. AP News stated that Myanmar is struggling to regain momentum as the country's civil war increasingly disrupts trade in livelihoods. They added that the value of Myanmar's currency, the kyat, has sunk and many imported goods are in short supply. They also reported that around a third of factories surveyed by the World Bank reported facing electricity out of to add to the already troubling picture. By March 2024, Myanmar's exports had fallen by 133% compared to the previous year. While imports experienced an even steeper decline of 20%, this alarming trend underscores the deepening economic challenges facing the country, presenting a stark reminder of the urgent need for recovery and reform in these uncertain times. Number 3, Bangladesh. Bangladesh, where the land is as big as its culture, and the rivers weave a tapestry of life through lush green landscapes tucked away between the Bay of Bengal and the powerful Himalayas. Bangladesh has the largest river delta in the world, making it an ideal natural paradise for those with an adventurous spirit. However, like a plot twist in a mind-bending novel, this captivating country is currently on shaky ground financially, with uncertainty looming after the resignation and exile of the stubborn and violence-pushing former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. Bangladesh is now facing a potential bankruptcy crisis, drawing comparisons with its neighbor Pakistan. When reporting on this crisis in December 2024, India.com stated that among all sectors suffering, the garment industry, a cornerstone of Bangladesh's economy, has been hit the hardest due to international buyers canceling orders, unsafe working conditions, being exposed to the mainstream news, and protests disturbing production, as the garment industry in Bangladesh is the second largest in the world after China. This is causing major financial woes for many citizens of the country, as the ongoing turmoil in the country makes mainstream news. Big global brands are starting to pull away, causing businesses to shift their focus to Indian manufacturers to meet their demands. They also noted that rising attacks on minorities, especially on the Hindu community, have further escalated concerns within the industry, with several companies on the verge of shutting down. Currently, Bangladesh's debt is estimated to be around $164 billion, or 37.2% of its GDP. To make matters worse, the country's debt is expected to increase to $325.71 billion by 2029, a whopping 102.2% increase. Furthermore, according to CNBC TV 18, the central bank has devalued the taka, Bangladesh's currency, in the last few years, but that hasn't helped so far. They noted how the Asian Development Bank expects inflation to rise to 10.1% in fiscal year 5, largely due to elevated food prices. They added that there's also a fear of a run on banks due to the rising number of unpaid loans. Number 2, Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe, a land of stunning landscapes where the majestic Victoria Falls tumbles over cliffs and the savannas host an array of magnificent wildlife snuggled in southern Africa. This gem boasts a rich needlepoint of cultures and history, with its vibrant towns like Harare buzzing with life and creativity. Yet one might be shocked to hear that the nation is on the verge of financial collapse. Despite its allure of luxury, while Zimbabwe isn't yet officially bankrupt, the country is dealing with serious economic issues like hyperinflation and high unemployment rates, which make daily living extremely difficult for many. Much of Zimbabwe's financial woes can be traced back to the period of 2000 to 2008, when the government financed a growing budget deficit by ING money, which led to hyperinflation, with prices doubling daily in 2008, according to Economics Online. At one point, inflation reached 89.7 SETillion per annually, rendering the Zimbabwe and dollar nearly worthless. Fast forward to today, and this dark period is still felt in the fabric of the country. In November 2024, the African Development Bank Group reported that Zimbabwe is undertaking economic reforms as part of the process to clear its $21 billion public debt. In terms of GDP, according to Statista, the gross domestic product in current prices in Zimbabwe was forecast to continuously increase between 2024 and 2029 by a total of $3.4 billion, US 99.47%, after the seventh consecutive increasing year. The GDP is estimated to reach $9.33 billion, and therefore a new peak in 2029. The last thing to note here is crime. As with any country facing financial difficulties, crime will inevitably trend upwards. Since 2020, crime has been increasing in Zimbabwe, undoubtedly putting a further strain on an already struggling economy. Number 1, Sri Lanka, often dubbed the Pearl of the Indian Ocean. Sri Lanka is what many would refer to as a true tropical paradise just south of India, this enchanting island. V-plush tea plantations, stunning beaches, and a plush drapery of wildlife with its outgoing locals and mouth-watering cuisine. Think aromatic curries and fresh seafood. Sri Lanka feels like a treasure trove waiting to be explored beneath this peaceful exterior, though the nation has long been facing serious financial difficulties. When Sri Lanka defaulted on its enormous $83 billion debt in April 2022, the situation reached a tragic climax, and its foreign exchange reserves fell to a pit $50 million according to crisis group years of undertaxation, weak exports, and over-reliance on debt combined with the COVID-19 pandemic and major policy errors helped lead to the dire situation in 2022. Tax hikes and lost subsidies since then have hit many Sri Lankans hard, while sparing many of the counties wealthy and powerful. In October 2024, CNBC TV 18 included Sri Lanka on their list of 7 countries that are either bankrupt or need bailout to avert a default. They noted how rising poverty and debt obligations are obstructing the country's recovery. According to CIC data, in the latest reports, Sri Lanka national government debt reached $93.4 billion in June 2024, and the country's nominal GDP reached $2.9 billion in March 2023. So it's safe to say this debt has had a knock-on effect and negatively affected a large portion of Sri Lankan citizens. According to World Bank, an estimated 25.9% of Sri Lankans were living below the poverty line in 2023, and poverty rates are projected to remain above 22% until 2026. They noted that some factors that contribute to this include high debt service obligations, inadequate debt restructuring, reversal of reforms, financial sector vulnerabilities, and the enduring impact of the crisis. What about 10 U.S. states going broke in 2025? Subscribe to our channel Earth Explorer Hub for more interesting facts around the world.